George Lucas called Anakin the Chosen One in every interview he ever gave, but never once explained what the prophecy actually means. Fans have spent almost 30 years trying to answer a question that Lucasfilm has spent just as long keeping open. For 20 years, the most important prophecy in Star Wars did not exist. It was referenced in 6 films, debated by the Jedi Council, and used to justify training the most dangerous Force user in galactic history. But not once, in any movie, show, comic, or reference book did anyone say what the prophecy actually said. Then a novel published in 2019 finally revealed the text. One sentence, 20 words, so vague that the man who staked his life on it once admitted he did not even take it literally. Canon presents the Chosen One prophecy without commentary or explanation. It sits in the Jedi archives alongside a handful of other ancient visions, none of which have authors, dates, or interpretive notes. A young Qui-Gon Jinn and his fellow student Rael Averross read them together on an ordinary day in the temple. The words themselves are plain. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him, ultimate balance in the Force will be restored. One sentence that never says what balance means, never names the Sith, and never describes how balance will be achieved. It says nothing about what happens after. It does not say the Chosen One is a Jedi, that he stays good, or that the process will be painless. By any honest reading, it is spectacularly vague. Surrounding it are prophecies just as empty. One warns that someone born to darkness will give birth to darkness, with no name and no timeline. Another says that evil, once dead, shall return, so vague that a teenage Obi-Wan Kenobi calls it nonsense. A third is a prophecy about the time of prophecy, a prediction that predictions will start coming true. Obi-Wan reads through the entire collection and dismisses it as meaningless. But the Chosen One prophecy is not special because it is clear. It is special because people decided it mattered. Every other prediction in that archive was ignored. Only one was turned into the foundation of a galactic religion. Only one was used to justify tearing a slave boy from his mother and placing him at the center of a war, because one man believed it was real. The young Obi-Wan asks Qui-Gon directly whether he takes the prophecies literally. Qui-Gon's answer is startling. Once, when he was younger, he did, but not anymore. He sees them as tools for self-reflection, not predictions. The ancient mystics could only see the future through the lens of their own experience. Studying prophecy reveals fears, hopes, and limitations. It does not reveal the truth. Later in the novel, Obi-Wan challenges him on all of it. He's taking every hazy, mystical prophecy literally from now on. Qui-Gon's answer is honest and uncomfortable. He thinks he has to. Now that he has stood where the prophets stood, he must listen to them in humility, not in judgment. Qui-Gon began as someone who thought the whole idea was a metaphor. He rebuilt his belief not through study, but through a single shattering personal experience. The prophecy he would later die for never actually told him what to look for. Dooku had once studied the prophecies obsessively before abandoning them without explanation. His sudden reversal shook Qui-Gon for years. He forced himself to agree that the texts were meaningless and set the prophecies aside. But his skepticism did not last. A single experience destroyed it. During a mission on the planet Pijal, a Force vision hit him so hard that it shattered his entire framework. It was specific. It was accurate. It showed him something he could not explain away. After Pijal, he knew the prophecies were real. So when Qui-Gon arrived on Tatooine and met a fatherless boy with the highest midichlorian count ever recorded, he was not operating on decades of careful study. He was running on recently restored conviction, fueled by a single vision that had torn his worldview apart and rebuilt it in a matter of hours. He connected the dots and bet everything on a child he had known for less than a day. The council did not agree. Mace Windu pushed back. Ki-Adi-Mundi called the boy too old. Yoda sensed something dangerous, but he was certain. On Naboo, a Sith Lord's blade ended his life before he could see what his faith would cost the galaxy. If you want to see more videos like this one, a quick subscribe means you will always be first to know. Because with Qui-Gon gone, his faith in the prophecy passed to someone who did not share it. The novel's epilogue finds Obi-Wan standing over Qui-Gon's body in the funeral shrine on Naboo. He never believed Anakin was the chosen one. He had not seen what Qui-Gon saw. He had not felt what his master felt. Everything Obi-Wan knew about the boy told him Anakin was dangerous, too old, too angry, too attached. His own instincts told him to walk away, but Qui-Gon's dying wish was for Obi-Wan to train the boy. Standing over the body of the man who raised him, Obi-Wan did not claim to know the prophecy was true, and he did not claim the evidence confirmed confirmed it. He chose to believe it. The Jedi Order's entire acceptance of Anakin Skywalker as the Chosen One rests on a chain of inherited faith. One man's restored conviction passed through grief to an apprentice who adopted it out of loyalty. In the Legends novelization of Revenge of the Sith, Mace Windu senses Anakin through the Force as a Shatterpoint, a pivot point of galactic significance. But even Mace, with his unique abilities, could only confirm that Anakin mattered. He cannot see the outcome. The dark side clouded everything. The balance was already so delicate that the slightest shift in any direction would cause chaotic oscillation. Anything could happen. Mace could see that Anakin was at the center of something. He cannot see whether the center would hold or collapse. Anakin himself believed his visions were a form of prophecy. He knew Force prophecy was not absolute, but that his own visions had never been wrong, not in the slightest detail. He had known as a boy he would be chosen by the Jedi. He had known his adventures would span the galaxy. Every vision that came to him arrived perfectly intact. Every premonition landed. Where other Jedi treated their visions with caution, Anakin treated his as fact. When the nightmares about Padme began, he did not weigh them against uncertainty. He accepted them as inevitable and began looking for a way to override fate rather than accept it. But there is a critical tension underneath. The great prophets of the Jedi had always taught that the gravest danger in trying to prevent a vision from coming to pass is that in doing so, a Jedi can actually bring it to pass. Anakin believed himself exempt from that warning. This may have been one of the cracks Palpatine later pried open. In Legends, Dooku lays out an even bleaker picture in Darth Plagueis of why the Jedi clung to the prophecy at all. Dooku, meeting with Palpatine, lays out the Council's failure. Instead of rising up against the corruption of the Republic, they have become fixated on a prophesized Redeemer who will bring balance to the Force and restore order. Palpatine is genuinely surprised. He had never heard of the prophecy before. It was a secret the Jedi kept among themselves, a hope they clung to while the galaxy rotted around them. Dooku's contempt is plain. The Order interprets the prophecy to mean that the dark tide needs to be stemmed, but Dooku believes the Jedi could fulfill the prophecy on their own if they were willing to use the powers of the Force. The prophecy, in Dooku's eyes, was an excuse. The Council used it to avoid doing the hard work themselves. There is another layer underneath. Plagueis and Sidious had spent years trying to bend the Force to their will, tipping the galactic balance towards the dark side. They believed they had succeeded, but Plagueis was haunted by the suspicion that the Force would retaliate. When Dooku reported a boy on Tatooine born without a father, Plagueis rushed across Coruscant in a panic. He needed to see the child himself. He needed to know if the Force had struck back 9 years earlier by conceiving a human being to restore balance to the galaxy. After reaching out through the Force towards Qui-Gon and the boy, Plagueis was overwhelmed by visions, lightsaber clashes, deep space battles, and a black-helmeted cyborg rising from a table. Every image pointed towards a future Plagueis had not planned and could not control. His final thought was plain. The boy would change the course of history. In Legends, Anakin was not created by the Sith. He was created because of them. The Force made him an immune response to overreach. If that framing is true, then the prophecy was not predicting the future at all. It was describing a defense mechanism the Force had not yet activated. George Lucas himself confirmed Anakin's identity in behind-the-scenes material for Revenge of the Sith. Anakin is the Chosen One, even as Vader, and he fulfills the prophecy by destroying the Sith, meaning himself and the Emperor. But Lucas always added one qualifier. Anakin does it because he's redeemed by his son. Every time Lucas confirmed the prophecy, he credited Luke as the reason it worked, which cracks the entire framework wide open. Anakin destroyed the Sith. He did it because his son stood in front of him on the Death Star and refused to fight. Luke Skywalker is nowhere in the prophecy. The person who made the Chosen One choose is the one person the text never names. Star Wars Rebels delivers the clearest version of the shift. Season 3, Episode 20, titled Twin Sons, ends with Obi-Wan killing Darth Maul on Tatooine. With his last breath, Maul needs to know if Obi-Wan is protecting the Chosen One. Obi-Wan's answer is yes. The camera cuts to young Luke Skywalker on the horizon. The man who trained Anakin, who whispered "I choose to believe" over Qui-Gon's pyre, has transferred that belief to Anakin's son. He's not protecting the offspring of the Chosen One, he's protecting the Chosen One. Luke's case is not weak. He's the one who refuses to fight the Emperor. He throws away his lightsaber, he looks at the most feared man in the galaxy, and insists that there is still good in him. Luke's refusal to strike is the only reason Vader turns. Remove Luke from the throne room, and Anakin dies a Sith Lord aboard the second Death Star. Palpatine rules forever. The prophecy fails. In canon, Anakin was shown crossing into the Force after death. Obi-Wan meets him there. When Luke called out, Anakin answered. He chose Luke over the Empire. He chose empathy over power. He chose a future for the galaxy to break the rule of the Sith. He chose to bring balance. 4 separate times, Obi-Wan describes it the same way, never as something fulfilled or destined, only ever as something chosen. Balance is framed as a decision Anakin made in one moment, because of Luke. The prophecy did not drive the outcome. A father's love did. A son's faith did. But if Luke is what made the prophecy work, then Anakin's role narrows. The prophecy says the chosen one will be born of no father. Luke was born of Anakin and Padme. Luke is nowhere in the text. The prophecy either predicted Anakin and forgot to mention the person he would need, or it was never accurate enough to predict anything at all. Answering any one of these questions opens a new problem. Anakin is the chosen one, but only because of Luke. Luke is the catalyst, but the prophecy does not account for catalysts. The prophecy says balance will be restored, but no one in the story agrees on whether Luke's role counts as fulfillment or something else entirely. Earlier in the same anthology, a separate Obi-Wan story puts a finer print on it. Reflecting on Luke during their conversation on Dagobah, Obi-Wan thinks about how much Anakin lives on in his children. He sees a great deal of Anakin in Luke, but he notes that Luke inherited mainly the best qualities. Obi-Wan had not killed Anakin Skywalker. He reflects, neither had Vader. The best of Anakin lived on in Leia and in Luke. If the chosen one's purpose was to bring balance, and his best qualities survive through his children, then the prophecy's fulfillment is spread across a family. It is not concentrated in one person. It never was. Rael Averross, the Jedi who studied the prophecies alongside Qui-Gon, confronts the definition problem head-on in Master and Apprentice. Qui-Gon may never have truly thought about what balance would mean. It would mean the darkness is just as strong as the light, so nothing anyone does matters because in the end, it is a tie. Qui-Gon does not correct him. He does not say balance means the destruction of the dark side. He pivots entirely. He turns towards the light not because it means winning some cosmic game. He turns towards it because it is the light. Even the most faithful believer in the prophecy refuses to define its central term. But the prophecy's vagueness is not just a flaw. It is a vulnerability. One person in the galaxy knew exactly how to use it. Palpatine did not need to break the prophecy. He only needed to change one word. In the Revenge of the Sith novelization, Palpatine reveals himself as a Sith Lord to Anakin. He does not deny the prophecy or argue against it. He takes the same 2 words and rebuilds them. When Anakin stammers about the Chosen One, Palpatine confirms it without hesitation. Anakin is the Chosen One, and the choosing was his. Palpatine presses further. The Sith knew about the prophecy. They were never gonna just sleep while it came to pass. Submission to fate is not the Sith way. It was never Anakin's way either. Anakin, drowning in grief and fear, cannot argue back, because the prophecy gave him nothing concrete to hold on to. If a villain can walk into the room, swap one definition, and turn a sacred text into a recruitment pitch, then the text is never stable. Palpatine did not overpower the prophecy. He walked through a door it left wide open. The Jedi are guilty of the same thing. When the Council debates sending Anakin to spy on Palpatine, Ki-Adi-Mundi pushes for Anakin to stay in play against the Sith, positioned to fulfill his destiny as the Chosen One. But Agan Kolar hedges immediately. Even if the prophecy has been misread, Anakin is still the one Jedi most likely to survive a Sith encounter. The Council relies on the prophecy when it supports their strategy and sets it aside when it does not. They treat it the same way Palpatine does, as a tool for justifying decisions already made. The only difference is the Jedi believe they are acting in good faith. Anakin sees through both. He erupts after being assigned to spy on the Chancellor. The Council calls him the Chosen One, and Anakin throws the title back at them, reduced in his mind to nothing more than a dupe in a political game. Lucas approved that line. It sits at the center of the saga tragedy. The Chosen One label was placed on Anakin by others. Anakin never asked for it. He could not explain it. Neither could the people who pinned it on him. A private scene between Obi-Wan and Padme drives the point further. Padme asks Obi-Wan point blank if Anakin is the Chosen One. Obi-Wan has scanned the prophecy himself. It says only that a Chosen One will be born and bring balance to the Force. Nowhere does it say he has to be a Jedi. He goes further. The Jedi speak of the will of the Force the way someone ignorant of gravity might say it is the will of a river to flow to the ocean. It is a metaphor describing their own ignorance. The truth is, they do not truly know what the will of the Force may be. They can never know. The man responsible for training the Chosen One admitted, in private, that he had spent years guarding a boy based on a sentence he could not interpret, and that the Force itself was unknowable. Lucasfilm has not failed to explain explain the prophecy. They've spent decades building the case for why it should never be explained. Start with the timeline. The Phantom Menace introduced the Chosen One concept in 1999. For 20 years after, across films, animated series, and novels, the actual text stayed hidden. When the novel finally published the text in 2019, it answered none of the questions fans had been asking for 2 decades. Lucasfilm did not accidentally keep the prophecy's text hidden that long. A gap like that is a strategy. Now look at what the story does to characters who try to pin the prophecy down. In Master and Apprentice, Dooku's obsession with the prophecy holocron traces a direct line from fascination to the dark side. But the strongest version of that warning comes from Mortis. The Mortis arc, Season 3 of the Clone Wars, takes the argument to a cosmic scale. Episodes 15 through 17 send Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka to a realm where the Force is personified. The Father, the Son, and the Daughter represent balance, darkness, and light. The Father calls Anakin the Chosen One and asks him to stay and keep his children in check. But the most important moment in the arc is not the test, it is what happens after. The Son shows Anakin a vision of his own future. The fall, the mask, the younglings, the suit, everything. Anakin sees what he'll become. He sees the cost of his choices before he makes them. The weight of it breaks him. For a brief window, Anakin turns. He kneels before the Son and agrees to help overthrow the Father. The Chosen One, given full knowledge of his future, does not resist it. He surrenders to it and he chooses the same path he was shown, only faster, only willingly. The Father erases his memory. He wipes Anakin's knowledge of his own identity to make sure the prophecy plays out as the Force wills it. The one person the prophecy was written about is not allowed to read the ending. If the character at the center of the prophecy is forbidden from understanding it, the audience was never going to receive a cleaner answer. Lucas was always definitive about who the Chosen One was. He never wavered on that point. He also never once defined what balance means. He never said who wrote the prophecy. He never explained when or why it was created. He put the words "a prophecy that misread could have been" into Yoda's mouth in Revenge of the Sith, then never clarified whether the misreading was real. Lucas's commentary track for The Phantom Menace goes further. Qui-Gon was wrong in Episode 1 and made a dangerous decision, but ultimately the decision may have been correct. Wrong and correct at the same time. He validated the prophecy and cast doubt on it in the same breath. Every interviewer who pressed him for a clean answer received the same treatment. Confirmation followed immediately by a qualifier. Certainty followed immediately by ambiguity. Aboard a gunship before the battle, Yoda, Mace, and Obi-Wan discuss Anakin's fate one last time. Mace is blunt. They do not know what is coming. They do not even truly understand what it means to bring balance to the Force. They have no way of anticipating what it may involve. Yoda agrees. An infinite mystery is the Force. The more they learn, the more they discover how much they do not know. The 2 most senior Jedi in the galaxy, at the exact moment the prophecy is about to be tested, admitted they did not understand its central concept. Lucas built the prophecy the same way every real messianic tradition works, debated endlessly, never fully provable, with one side always claiming fulfillment and the other always refusing it. He planted that structure into Star Wars and stepped back. If Lucasfilm officially declared Luke was the Chosen One, the prequel trilogy would lose its center. Anakin's arc would collapse into a prologue for someone else's story. Half the fanbase would reject it. If they confirmed only Anakin mattered, that Luke was just a catalyst, the original trilogy's emotional climax would shrink. Luke's faith in his father would become a plot device instead of a theme. If they defined balance as the total destruction of the dark side, they would contradict every post-Return of the Jedi story that features dark side users. If they said balance means equal light and dark, they would contradict Lucas himself, who repeatedly said the dark side is corruption, not a counterweight. Every possible answer shrinks the story. The prophecy works only because it stays open. In canon, Palpatine's point of view captures the final proof. The Emperor watches Anakin struggle with the decision to save Luke. He sees something in Vader that remains eternally undecided, the mark of a man who was chosen but never truly chose. This suggests Palpatine had grown a count on Anakin's indecision for decades, bet on it, staked his hold over Vader on the belief that Anakin would never commit to the light. He is so certain of Anakin's paralysis that he cannot imagine the moment where it breaks. Until that moment in the throne room, until Luke called out and Anakin answered, until a father decided. Obi-Wan understood that from the beginning. Standing over Qui-Gon's body on Naboo, he never claimed to have verified the prophecy. He simply chose to believe it. Decades later, watching over a boy on Tatooine, telling a dying Maul that the Chosen One was real, he was still choosing. choosing. His faith had passed through grief, through failure, through the destruction of everything he built. It was held, not because the prophecy proved itself, but because he never stopped. But the Chosen One was not the only prophecy in that holocron. Dooku was fixated on a different one, a vision about conquering death and living again through the greatest student. It consumed him before his fall, and it may have been the thing that led him to Palpatine in the first place. So watch this video to find out.